Anna. Letizia, my goodness, what a view.
Hi.
It's beautiful. So let's just dive right in. Will you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and kind of how you got into the wine game and got where you are now?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the invitation. My
My
name.
pleasure.
I would like you to bring with us in the vineyards, but we're just having a hard rain, so I just decided to stay here. And I hope you can see something on my
It's
on the.
gorgeous.
Thank you. I am Letizia, and together with my sister and my parents, we run the third. We are the third generation of our Cesani winery. That is a small estate in the middle of Tuscany. The place where we live is called San Gimignano. It's a small medieval town, middle of Tuscany, and we mainly grow white grapes over here. And our grandparents established the winery in 1951, and nowadays we continue with the activity. We have about 30 hectares of land now, and my father is the one who follow all the agricultural aspects. I would say that sometimes you forget my sister and mine birthday date, but he won't forget when he planted a certain vine in a certain place. He never forget. And this is fantastic. I work in the cellar, so I'm the winemaker. We also have an external consultant that is Paolo Caciornia, who help us. And my sister takes care of the accommodations, because we also run a B&B as a kind of a green, yeah. So there are people coming all over the state for, visiting, sightseeing, making wine tasting, and so she takes care of the hospitality.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned Paolo. Is that Paolo Caciorna from Sicily?
He's like my grandparents from Marche, indeed.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he lives
Awesome.
in Tuscany, just a few kilometers from us. So we are close friends since we were young. And he established a new activity in Sicily, where he found a perfect environment to decide to make wine by his own.
That's
So
right. I met him and I always just put him in Sicily because we tasted his
yeah,
Sicilian wines. But yes, that's
yeah,
awesome.
he makes
Um,
Nerello,
yeah.
Nanticchia, and so on, but he lives just here in Tuscany. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, some people, there's a drink wine with me said that she toured your property on her honeymoon. Oh, with Maria Luisa with her on her honeymoon. And there's some people from Sweden here. So my friend Chloe Flower is on here. So we have a diverse crowd. Can you talk to us very broadly? Because for me, because I'm very much the beginner in Italy, when I think of Tuscany, I think Brunello and Chianti, but I think your story is a little bit different. So can you give us a very broad overview of Tuscany as a wine region, and then San Gimignano, and then your estate?
Of course, with pleasure. Tuscany is one of the most important Italian region for the wine production. And whenever you think to Tuscany, you're right. Most of the people think to Chianti or Brunello, because this is a place where generally we are very well known abroad and all over the world for red wines. In San Gimignano, that is our small town, we are called the white exception, because in this particular place instead is the only place where we grow a special and very rare white grape called Vernaccia di San Gimignano.
Okay.
And this is the reason why the majority of our production is white, because this is a fantastic place. Nowadays, we are about 1 hour driving from the coast.
Okay.
But 10 millions of years ago, we were completely underwater.
Oh.
And this is a fossil shell that we have
Wow.
years. You see, they are
Mm-hmm.
about 10 millions of years ago, and so most of our soil is completely sandy and clay, but rich of fossil shells wherever. So this is the reason why we are able to grow white as well. That is quite exceptional for Tuscany, where instead you generally find the perfect environment for Sangiovese, that is the most grown Toscan grape variety, a red one, that generally is grown in a different kind of soil, rich of stones, called alberese or galestro. And this is really an island, a very, very special corner of Tuscany. As you can see, maybe from looking at the view, this is really a very traditional Toscan landscape, because you asked me to talk a little bit of Tuscany. What is our peculiar aspect is the richness of the environment. We are not only a wine growing area, so we don't only have monoculture, but we also grow something else, mainly olive trees that are all the gray plants that you see there.
Mm-hmm.
We also have woods and cereals, and in our particular place, we also grow saffron. So nice variety of crops in the area.
Yeah. And then, so are there other wineries in San Gimignano that make exclusively Vernaccia like you, or you're unique in that aspect?
Well, in San Gimignano, Vernaccia is really our kind of identification wine, so our identity card. So all the wineries in San Gimignano make Vernaccia. We generally have 50% white and 50 red. In our case, we grow 60% white, but we also have red. Consider that San Gimignano is a very small town. We only have a little bit less than 8,000 inhabitants, local people living here. And of them, 110 run wineries. Not all of them bottle by themselves, but someone, grow the grapes and then work in cooperative, for instance, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in total, we produce Vernaccia for about 5 million of bottles. So it's quite a tiny denomination for being in Tuscany, but it's a very old-fashioned and traditional style denomination. Consider that Vernaccia di San Gimignano has been the first DOC wine all over Italy. So the DOC, the denomination of origin, has been given to the Vernaccia for the first time in Italy. And you can read about this wine since the 13th century in the Dante comedy or novels, Boccaccio. We have very, very long tradition. A very special one.
So I think you've already answered this question, but I was in Jurançon in southwest France, where they pretty much exclusively make white wine. And he said even in France, people don't know that region because it's a red wine drinking culture, and white wine is not an afterthought, but just not as popular, and not making any red wine. They kind of get lost in the shuffle. But it sounds like that's not the case in Italy with your Vernaccia from your region.
Well, in a certain way, we are very popular in the area, in our region. Whenever you think to white, you only think to Vernaccia. But it's true that most of foreigners or people that consume the wines abroad, they think to red wines in Tuscany. So it's the same. It's a little bit, it's very exclusive, but not so easy to be well known, because people really expect red wines from this place. Yeah.
And then do you keep reinforcing that? Do you say that you're from San Gimignano to make that kind of a brand that people can relate to, or do you talk more about the Vernaccia from the region?
Well, in our particular attitude, we talk more about the grape, about Vernaccia, a Vernaccia family style. But we are really linked to our place, to our native spot. So we really talk about San Gimignano, but with a difference. You must know that San Gimignano, out of the corona problems and before the lockdown, was one of the most visited town and city all over Tuscany by the tourists. So we try to keep a little bit distance, and so we talk about Vernaccia more than about the town, because sometimes, especially in the past, the wine has been treated like a kind of souvenir, you know, something, you know, not really a nice gift to bring home, no matter what there is inside. So it was a little bit difficult for us to believe in this kind of grapes and the quality and so on. Consider that in San Gimignano there have been more than 3 million of tourists every year. So it's a huge number, and so we are much more proud sometimes to talk about the wine. That's not really about the towers. That's all. Yeah.
It's really actually interesting. It's very kind of insider baseball, but it's something that everybody can relate to about how you put yourself out in the world. It's very interesting to me. So can you talk about the Cesani winery uniqueness within the region then? What do you do differently to stand out, and how are you special in the region?
Well, we are considered in the region one of the most traditionalist wineries in the winemaking process and in the approach and the kind of wines that we present. We try to be very classical in, you know, the presentation of the wine, and what we do different. First of all, we make wines that is not so common here in the area. You were talking about France. Everybody over there is able to, is used to think about cruise, about single vineyards. Here is not really common. We don't have in our rules cruise and so on. At Cesani wineries, we always try to make wines from the single vineyards.
Oh.
So you know the soil, you know the grapes, you know how the combination of the microclimate and this soil, which different characteristics give to the grapes, and try to express in a different label. Because really, even in the same area, very close one to another, every single plot has a different story. So this is something very special about it. The second thing, for instance, is our choice not to use wood, any wood in the white, even in the Riserva, because so it's not so common for the aging white wines in the area, but we think is much more expressive for our style of wine. And the last things that really identify us is the fact that we use the time as an ingredient, in the sense that everybody generally with white wine in our area expect to drink very young, fresh, easy drinking white wine. But instead we try to release on the market later than the other.
Okay.
So, for instance, our Riserva is, for our rules, it's possible to release a Riserva after 11 months from the harvest. We release it after 36 months. So
wow.
You need a little bit of patience, but we think that for our grapes, really to wait is the only successful keyword. And this is something that makes us different. Yeah.
That's very thorough, and I really appreciate it. And clearly you're doing something right, because Eva and Beth said they refer to you as Lady V, that you make the best Vernaccia. Exactly. Where do you age it? Is it in concrete or in steel? If you're not using oak, where do you hold the wine?
Yeah, we generally keep it, our Riserva in concrete.
Okay.
Yeah, always keeping on the lees and making weekly battenage until the bottling day. And instead, for the other two crew that are the Pancole and Clamis, they are all in stainless steel tanks.
Okay.
Still, yeah.
And one of the things that I've come across by talking to people during this time is that the shipment of the wine in bottle out has slowed down, and some people are running into not having room. But then somebody also reminded me that the tank is the most efficient place to hold on to wine because it takes a little less space. How are you running into any issues like that with just shipping physically shipping the wine being slowed down with the coronavirus?
Well, we are used to bottle and to lay down the bottle for years before we ship.
Okay.
It's important to start selling the wine when can be drinkable. I mean, can start expressing the complexity that we're looking for. It's a great investment, but I think it's the only way to make people satisfied. Also, because consider that we are working with a grape that is not so easy to drink in a traditional version. It's not so aromatic, so you need really to wait a little bit. And if you have a short time in bottle, sometimes you risk to have not this fantastic expression of complexity in the nose. So we wait in the bottle.
So it's not an issue because you have plenty of space because you're used to holding on to the wine.
Well, unfortunately, the space is always a problem, and we have built a kind of underground gallery where we can keep the wine safe, with constants in temperature and humidity. But especially in these fantastic and beautiful areas, it's very difficult to build, any kind of new warehouses and so on. And the easiest way should be to stay in the tank, but sometimes you also need a little bit of months in the bottle, for sure.
Gotcha. So when I come to visit, and it will happen, hopefully, what wines are we going to taste? And I would like to hear also about the Merlot. Beth was very excited about the Merlot to tell me. And then what foods from the region do you serve with them, traditionally or maybe particularly with your wine, because it's maybe unique?
Well, what you're going to taste? For sure, our whites, the regular one, and our Riserva.
Beautiful.
2017 and 2018.
Okay.
We generally use the youngest for any kind of fried things.
Oh, okay.
Fried vegetables, or my grandparents are coming from the market area, and they have a very special recipe that we always use with this kind of grape. So it's a recipe, is a pairing of our heart that is called Olivia Scolari, kind of olives fried some meat inside. So you need to come and taste. They're very, very and so fried things are very, very good with one. And instead, with the Riserva, that is much more intense aromas, a little bit more complex, we recommend any kind of preparation with saffron, a little bit spicy, a little bit this style. Yeah.
How does saffron work in a wine pairing? Aside from yours, I'm sure is going to be the best that we'll have. But how do you do you think of it as a floral or as a spice?
It's a spice.
Spice, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then what would you tell me about a little bit about the Merlot and what you would eat with that?
Yeah, being very traditionalist, aside our Grenache grape, we grow mainly Sangiovese grape and any kind of other ancient Toscan variety. So we were growing Colorino, Ciligiolo, all this kind of stuff. Until we decided to plant something different, that was Merlot, because in the area was born a new denomination of origin, was a little bit, was our association, our consortium, together with the mayor of the city, wanted to make a kind of new deal for wine in San Gimignano, saying, okay, we know about Vernaccia, but what about growing also some more modern red wine and making something different? Because really we are in a fantastic environment, very good position, and we have a very high expectations aside Sangiovese to make something different. So we have a special, so there was a new trend trying to, making more modern wines using not only autochthons grapes variety. We didn't had any, so we were a little bit pushed by our consortium mayor trying to make a label with this new denomination of origin. And so looking at our vineyards, our soil, and we were thinking which kind of grape could be, more useful, more suitable for this spot. And 2 kilometers from here, we have a vineyard, very high. It's the only place in San Gimignano with notch shells. Only very big stones, but no shells at all. And so it's a fantastic place for Sangiovese. And over there we grow one of our cru that is Luenzo. And next to it, we decided to plant Merlot as well in this no shells area. Mm-hmm. And so we started planting in 1998, some Merlot, just a few. And we created this wine that was called Cellori, is the name of this place. And at the beginning, we used a blend, Sangiovese and Merlot together. Okay. But as you know, Merlot becomes ripe about 10 days before Sangiovese. Mm-hmm. So we separate harvest and vinify it by itself. I had a little bit of prejudice on Merlot, I have to tell you. My expectation was the ripeness, jammy style, very smooth. But vinifying it personally, year after year, I discovered that in that place was the place that overcame the grapes and not the opposite. Was a not conventional Merlot. Was very strange, very fresh, very balsamic, has a peppermint flavor. And the smoothness of the tannins is the one of Merlot, but not in the heavy sense. Has a nice acidity, a fantastic spot. So at the end, I decided to change, and our Cellori became 100% Merlot because was more expressive, more identity of this place. And we decided to do it like this. And 2013, the one we are releasing now, is the first vintage of this new deal.
I love it. And then what local food would you put with that to make it sing maybe even more, or to put a spotlight on the wine?
Sorry?
What food would you put with that?
Oh, Merlot is great in. We have a lot of wild boar. Do you know?
Yeah.
Cinghiale, and so with olives, one of our traditional recipe, and with that style of wine is really, the pairing is really very good.
Wow.
But even some cheese, you don't want to lose time in much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you again about where you are, just because about 25 minutes in, the whole audience has changed. So to refine the question a little bit, you mentioned that Tuscany is very lush, and it's kind of the breadbasket, if you will, that everything is, there's a lot of produce, but you need kind of bad soil to grow grapes. So how are your soils a little bit different? And then can you tell us what we're looking at in the background?
Yeah, consider we are on the top of a hill. There is nothing in front of me, but everything is on the back. And in this place, we are exactly 300 meters on the sea level. That's the altitude. Okay. And this is a place exactly in the middle of Tuscany. In the middle, we are 70 kilometers from the coast, 70 from Florence, 70 from Siena, really in the middle. And here, most of our soil is sandy and clay. Is mixed. In some places, the clay is a blue one. In some other places, is a gray clay. But everything is from limes and a lot of limestones.
Okay.
What is great of this part of Tuscany is the climate. Here is very temperate, and except for today, that is raining, generally is a very dry spot, so there is not a lot of humidity. For this reason, most of the wineries in the area are organic certified, because here it's really possible to be natural, not to have a lot of problems concerning, insects or other things. And there is always a little bit of breeze, so it's very windy, very open air, and during the night it is always a little bit cool. So this is very good for the flavors, especially for the white wine. So there is a very good excursions of temperature in between the night and the day.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Becky Sue Epstein, a journalist friend that's on here, asked how Vernaccia from San Gimignano is different from others. And I'm curious about, if you, in the glass, how do you come across just the taste of it? How is it different from other Vernaccia?
Ours.
Yeah. Or San Gimignano in general, but yours in particular, either one.
Yeah, well, generally, Vernaccia di San Gimignano is considered a not demi-aromatic, a semi-aromatic grape variety. Okay. So that's the first aspect. So generally, the expectation that you can have in a glass from a regular Vernaccia, not a Riserva, a young one, is a little bit citrusy style, fruitiness, but more yellow fruit, apples, peaches, something like this, and white flowers, jasmine, acacia, very, very light. That's generally the style. And then when you taste it, one of the main characteristics of Vernaccia is the low acidity, but the very, very intense saltiness. Okay. It's very tasty, very salty, but never too acid. This is very characteristic. In our style, being located in a small village called Pancole, that is the driest corner of the area, this aspect of the smoothness and more intense. Furthermore, our style of wines, also to the nose, is very, very mineral, very earthy, very complex.
Awesome, thank you. While we're on here, Robin Kelly O'Connor just says hi, and I want to tell people Robin Kelly O'Connor is doing a Instagram live like this at 1 o'clock. So come back to see him at 1 o'clock today, New York time. We're almost out of time, but I have two random questions that when I open a wine, or when you open a wine, should I smell the cork or not smell the cork? There's a debate going on Twitter.
Well, in our case, we are using a technical cork.
Perfect.
So
okay.
You have no problems.
Awesome. And then another question that I think it's going to resolve itself fairly quickly, but people are saying that this new economy with sales reps not able to meet with buyers as much, some people are saying that wineries should make more 375 milliliter bottles. Have you thought about that at all, or do you have any input or something to say about that?
Well, we are wondering about this since nearly the beginning of the lockdown, because we are pretty sure that things are changing also in the future. So this is something we are very sensitive in, and most of the people recommend us to, change the way of communication, changing, supporting, sale agents in a different way, because we really need to face this new lifestyle that we are not sure that is going to end very, very quickly, unfortunately. Yeah. So yes, we're really sensitive about this. I've not really the solution at the moment, but yeah, everybody's talking about this.
Yeah. Well, I will let you go. We're at the half-hour mark, and I try to keep it right at a half an hour. But I have to agree, Eva and Beth always give good advice, who is lovely to talk to, and you've been a delight.
You're so kind. Thank you for the opportunity. I wait you here to see personally all the lives.
I hope so soon. It's a real pleasure. You take care, and thank you again for your time. It's been a lovely chat. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao. Bye.